the bad guys that took me do this to you? Not the same bad guys, but bad guys all the same. Poetry. This interaction he has with this little girl is a little bit weird, but I think the author is going for like big macho murder man with a soft heart for babies. And I hate it. I hate it because it doesn't make him any less abusive. Like, we see you, Carlton. You can come out from behind the curtain. Hello, hi, I'm from the void. I'm editing out all the curse words from this video, and there's a lot of them, and I just wanted to come in and say that I am not shitting on this book because I'm jealous of the author or because I want to tear down another creative. I am genuinely upset. I've been a reader for a long time. I've been reading books for a long time. I've been reading way before I ever decided that I wanted to write my own books. And it wouldn't have been difficult to elevate this book with just besides removing the blatant abuse. If it had just been tweaked, not even a little bit. If it had just been tweaked even a little bit, like having Sade and Adeline have a conversation about the stuff that they want to do to each other. Just having like a simple, like, they actually went out to eat the first time that he saw her. If he'd actually taken her out to eat, they could have had like a conversation about what they're both into. And then later on, she could have embraced that fear that he inspires in her, and it would have been consensual at that point. Or having Adeline be a struggling writer, and that's where her mommy issues stem from. Like, her mom wants her to get a boring desk job, and she's like, no, I'm going to do this author thing. And her mom's like, you know what, fine, you can do it on your own, and cuts her off. And she has no money now, so she has to move into her inherited grandmother's estate, this dilapidated, crumbling, gothic-esque mansion. And she has to get a job, and she has to very slowly build it back up. And Zade, him being a survivor of abuse himself, is the motivation for why he goes so hard on this vigilante thing, and it gives him a reason to actually connect with survivors. Like, it would not have been hard to make this an enjoyable story. Like, I can forgive the clunky, chunky prose and the weird descriptions and the misused words, but what I can't forgive is the blatant use and just the it's like H.G. Carlton knew that she could have written a better story and chose not to, because the answers were so obvious to me. And like, I'm a self-taught writer. I didn't go to school. I didn't have anybody to show me how it works. Everything I know is self-taught. And if I can see the answers, I know a professional editor could have, a critique partner could have. Anybody that she had shown this book to probably could have directed her into a better direction. And no one did, or she didn't show it to anybody. And just like, I want better stories. I want better books, and I think romance readers deserve better stories. And for this to just be so blatantly obvious, it wasn't a very complicated story to begin with, but it easily could have been upgraded had she just looked into having somebody help guide her. And I'm just pissed that we didn't get a better story. So anyway, I'm going to leave you with that. Enjoy the rest of the video. Apparently they sent somebody to scope her property and they didn't know about it. He wants to know about Archie. Adeline doesn't know anything. It's back and forth. Whatever. Chapter 17. Zade. It's Zade's chapter. And he's watching her go to bed, hard as a rock, watching her be practically naked, and then we get this. I close my eyes and work to regain control. I have to be quiet. She doesn't know I'm hiding in her closet. She should fear me, but only because once she ultimately submits to me, she'll have no chance of escaping. Or I don't think she has a chance now. Here, remember earlier when he's talking about Archie?
What is wrong with you, Carl? Well, I kill people and I eat hands.
If the shoe fits, wear it, please. I've never been in love with anything other than my job. I haven't even bothered for a year. I just don't have time. They were always a quick off again, the release rarely easing my tension. Well, that's not love. Can't force love. Love is built on trust and communication and sacrifice, and it has to be given freely, and this is not love. He watches her read Gigi's diaries for a while, expositing about his desires, and then when you make somebody fall in love with the darkest parts of you, there's nothing you can do that will scare them away. They will be yours forever because they already love all the fuck of you. Okay, while it is true that love is acceptance of somebody else's flaws, it does not excuse abuse, and it doesn't mean that you can't work to change some of those flaws. Like if you have an alcoholic problem that's hurting your loved ones, are you going to excuse the pain you're putting them through because, oh, they love me, it's fine? They can love you and still leave. And also, love is freely given by choice. You can't force somebody to fall in love with you. 51,218 people highlighted that quote, and I'm scared to know the reasons why. Her eyes start to droop, her head lolls, and the diary begins to slip from her black painted fingers. Are her fingertips painted black, or is it her nails? Something else I feel like the editor would have caught. She goes to sleep, turn the lights off. He's watching the shadows creep across the room. The only real monster in this house is me. So true. So true. He's creeping around her room like a weirdo. He puts a rose on the nightstand. Slipping a rose out of my pocket, I lay it on her nightstand. She'll freak out in the morning, and I'll make sure to play the video back so I can see it and find joy in her terror. What an insufferable piece of... I bet he would threaten to kill them both if she tries to leave. And this was written by a woman. He leaves, finally gets a call from Jay. Some baddie mob bosses are in town, and he's gonna go check it out. Fuck, you wanna mingle with a bunch of... Are you worried you'll fit in too well, Zaid? Chapter 18. He sends her a really stupid text. She's mad. He was in her house last night. They text back and forth. It's supposed to be cute banter, but I want to throw up instead. I feel bare and exposed beneath the thin cotton. When my legs begin to fall apart, I rip my hand out like I've touched a burning stove, hissing at my own stupidity. Zaid, you're a liar. Adeline, fuck Zaid. Next time you tell me to fuck, that is gonna be between my teeth. Sexy and not at all threatening. She dozes off and wakes up tied to the headboard. My eyes open wide and my breath lodges in my throat when I see a dark figure settled between my legs. Immediately I panic. My heart races and my adrenaline surges. I go to scream, but something constricts my mouth. My eyes round when I realize my mouth is taped shut. Why are we here? We didn't need to be here. He could have interacted with her like a decent human being, and we still could have gotten some of that drama surrounding the darker things that he has to do. He can still be broody and dark and not be a... I shudder beneath his touch, his hot breath fanning across my most sensitive area. My knees jerk inward, another useless attempt to close my legs, and then I feel them. A stubborn tear slips free as his teeth scrape around against my mouth. I scream and thrash against the feeling. I scream and thrash. I scream and thrash. This is not sexy. Anyway, he's eating her out and it's grossly worded. And I don't like it. He pulls his head away. He pulls his head away slowly, mic between his teeth until it slips free. A burning sensation radiating from the bud, like a fucking piece of gum. I try to wiggle away, but all it does is cause him to slide his hands behind my knees and forcibly push them back to my ears. I squeeze my eyes shut again, another traitorous tear slipping free as I thrash against my bonds, desperate to slip free. Does this sound like a woman who wants to be there, or the victim of a crime? She owes. No one is having fun, though. His mouth skates over my lips once before I watch a trail of saliva drip from his mouth into mine. Swallow your juices, he rasped.
That they put you in jail right away. No trial, no nothing.
He leaves her on the bed like a used sock, and she admits to herself that he's forcing himself on her. These are her thoughts. She's thinking this. He's forcing her. Chapter 19. I don't regret it. Not any more than when I stuck a gun in her cock up, that is, to take something without consent. Your Honor, Exhibit A. Archie wouldn't know how to have proper rough sex if he was given a fucking manual for it. He hurts women because he enjoys it. He doesn't know how to push a woman to the edge of pain, pleasure and pain, balancing between the two and making them desperate for more. He just hurts them. By the time he's done, the girl is thoroughly bruised and traumatized, maybe even bleeding. Does it sound familiar? If she genuinely wasn't intrigued, she wouldn't have texted me back in the first place. Her actions speak an entirely different language than her words. Deep breath. Deep breath. She was telling you to leave her alone, and I don't think it would have stopped you. But I digress. No is also a full sentence. No, period. No, exclamation point. Simply no. Whether she's dry as a desert or dripping wet, no is a full sentence. Doesn't make it right, nor does it justify it, but I can't make myself to regret tasting something so perfect, even if she didn't want to want it. But she could have. She could have if you had not broken in, if you had asked her out, if you had done anything kind of normal. Zayd loves to wax poetic about how righteous he is in killing monsters, and then goes and does this to a girl he never really had a solid conversation with. He isn't a monster slayer like he thinks he is. He is a monster taking out his competition for resources. I'm sitting in my Mustang. My phone blares in the console next to me. I fucked it. He drives a Mustang. Jay calls him. He's gotta go do some like spooky fair thing. Whatever. He's talking about like this spooky fair that's coming into a town in a couple of weeks. He has to go to it to check out some traffickers. He doesn't want to go. Haunted houses don't scare me, not when I see true horror every day. There's nothing a couple of made-up monsters can do to horrify me more than the actual monsters polluting this world. Humans don't need to decorate themselves in gory makeup and fake blood to be scary. It's the insides of us, the darkness that lurks beneath the surface. That's what's truly terrifying. Yeah? Is it ringing any bells, Zayd? Time skip. I can still taste you, little mouse. I stepped back for all of 2 days before I can resist no longer. I've beat my like it was an opponent in a boxing match. So Adeline like sends him a text about how her great grandmother was murdered by her stalker, and Zayd is going on about how he's different. When I saw her, I fucking fell on my knees with need, and I'll have her, but not because I'm a psychotic and delusional. I'm not going to make a shrine of her and convince myself that we were destined to be together. Are you sure? Are you sure that's not what you did? Are you gonna wear her skin later too? They text back and forth some more. Addie, he tricked her, just like what you're trying to do to me, and then he killed her, just like I'm sure you'll eventually try to do. I roll my eyes at her dramatics and hit the call button. She picks up on the phone but doesn't speak. I hear her breathing softly through the receiver, and I wish I were there to lick her pulse and feel it drumming against my tongue. I love that I scare her. You done being dramatic, I ask? The gaslighting is on cosmic levels. Dramatic? You think Gigi being murdered by her stalker is dramatic? Do you think being stalked at all is something to be taken lightly? Well, of course not, I reply. People die all the time from crazed stalkers. My honesty stuns her into silence. Addie, baby, you're smart for being scared. Very smart. But why would I want you to fall in love with something fake? She snorts. You really think I'd fall in love with you? You're really gonna act like you wouldn't? If I approached you in that bookstore and asked you on a date, I'd woo you, charm you, show you a pretty fake smile, and then treat you like a queen, all the while lying to your face. Is that what you really want? Wow. You could have been honest without assaulting her. Just saying. And just like with Archie, she would have been into it, and Adeline could have had a choice in what happens. You know, like there could have been consent. Did you do it? She asked suddenly, as if the question burst out of her. Her breathing escalates. Did you kill Arch? I bite my bottom lip, a smile forming. I've been waiting for this question. Surprised it took her so long to work up the nerve when she's got plenty of it to disobey me. Do you know what that caused, Kitty Cat? I chuckled at the nickname. I'll correct that little bad habit of hers soon. Wow. So they're talking about how killing Archie put a target on Adeline's back, and I feel like it might be important later. Just a little bit. Chapter 20. I'm exhausted. When's it over? He's in a club being a judgmental Judy. There's a bunch of like Italian mob inspired men there with the open shirts and the hairy chests and like the gold jewelry galore. And then Zaid goes, Scarface is a role model very few men to do justice to when they imitate him. They can stick their faces in a pile of coke, but don't exhibit the same finesse while doing so. He drops by the upper deck and pays Max a visit. They're screwing a couple of the waitresses, and he interrupts the party and shoots off a shot and scares everybody, and then he tells the girls, I turn my eyes to the three girls. I want you beautiful ladies to see yourselves out and never speak of this again, yeah? I have the memory of an elephant, especially with faces. These women will never see the wrong end of my gun, even if they do tell, but it sure as hell would make my life a whole lot harder if they knew that. Adeline sure saw the raw end of that gun. He's got them all pinned down. He's threatens Max and tells the other two to like drop their weapons. They do, and then this happens. What the fuck are you talking about, man? I'll tell you why I'm here when the three of you set those pretty little guns you got right and up your assholes on the table there. Purdy, Purdyr, non-standard spelling of pretty used to represent dialect speech, like southern dialect speech. I don't know where he pulled that cowboy accent from, but top notch. Adeline Riley and Dea Pearson. Those names ring any bells in those empty as ears? Max's eyes rounded the edges slightly enough to reveal recognition. Never hear. Here's the thing about liars, I cut in. I really don't fucking like them. They kind of make me twitchy, actually. Do you want me getting twitchy when my finger is on the trigger? Max's lips tightened into a hard line. Your girl was involved with my best friend. And there's the thing about assumptions. I cut in again, grinning when Max snarls with irritation. They're baseless, and most of the time, you're really fucking wrong. Addie doesn't have anything to do with Archie's death, but I do.
Well, I kill people and I eat hands. That
He whips out his phone and shows Max a video of his father in a basement, like tied up. And Zaid tells him to leave Addie alone. Apparently his father is a bad guy too, because remember, Zaid is the best person in this book, and nobody can be above him. Everybody has to be awful and terrible and all that. I came awfully close to walking in here and shooting them all dead, but then I'd have to kill all their families too, and my girl doesn't like that when I do that. She doesn't like it when you assault her either. He threatens them and leaves, and for some reason, I realize that there's like no independent women in this book. Like all the women so far have been like, how do I explain this? So there's Adeline, her manager, her mother, author, agent, realtor. There's waitresses who we see fucking the mob guys. There's trafficking victims. Where are the female federal agents or the women working as like cops? Seems like all the people who work for Zaid are all men, with the exception of Dea, who we find out later works for Zaid. But she's only there as like a character witness for Zayd for Adeline. I'm not sure if I'm articulating it right. But it's almost like this book has a very like archaic view of women, like they don't have dangerous jobs. It might just be me. Time skip. He's undercover at a gentleman's club trafficking headquarters, slash trafficking headquarters. He's got a lot of nerve calling these men low-life rapists. Like, he's not right there on the floor with them. Something about Mark Williams, the senator. He'll come up later. It's not important right now. Savior complex, major time. He's a judgmental Judy. He sits there and tells us about how gross Mark is for taking advantage of a woman and like a women and girls. As he like dry humps a waitress, and all I can think of is how he's been doing the same thing to Adeline. Zero self-awareness, and he's projecting so hard. Like, yeah, sure, all the other men are gross and weird, but like, you're no better, Zayd. He distracts Mark, takes the waitress to the back, and calls for backup, getting her out into a getaway car. And she reminds him of Adeline. It's probably the freckles. I grab her wrist before she walks out the door. The nondescript black sedan is waiting 10 feet away, and the door already open for her. I know, she says softly. I don't know your face, and I've never seen you before, she guesses. I shake my head. Cherry, you're not gonna go to a place where you'll ever be questioned about something like that. You and your family will be taken care of and safe, I promise. All I ask is that you do something meaningful with your life, that's all. A single tear slips from her eye. She hurriedly wipes it away and nods. Her brightened eyes shine with hope, and doing this, involving myself with the worst of humanity, it's all worth it. When I have a survivor look at me like that, not like I'm a hero, but like I can actually envision a future. It's like he's two different people. He acts so different with, like, even, like, just everybody. Everybody who's not Adeline, he is a completely different person. He's, like, when he thinks to himself, it's one thing. And when he talks to Adeline, it's another. And then when he speaks with, like, women and girls and, like, his co-workers, it's a third person. It's just, like, none of these parts that are supposed to be Zayd all add up and work together to make one personality. They don't fit together in a cohesive way, and it just is, like, very distracting and very obvious. He's three very annoying people. And again, all of this like soft side that he has for like victims is all there to just make him look like a better person than he really is, so that when he goes and he hurts Adeline, you're like, oh well, he's like, that's not great, but like, he saves women and girls, and just like, it doesn't excuse the fact that you saving one or two women in your job does not excuse what you do to the one that you go home to. It doesn't make it any less horrendous when you pin a woman down in her sunroom and assault her with your weapon. You going and saving a waitress from another man who's no better than you are doesn't make what you did any less of a crime. And it just, I don't know. If he had just asked Adeline out on a date like a normal person, he can still be this brooding bad boy with like all the trauma and all of it. He could have still had all of that and still been like a decent person to Adeline. And then when the author has him doing these like acts of kindness to these women and these girls and these kidnapped victims, it makes him seem better. It balances out all that broody nature he's got. But that's not what this is doing. It's here just to make him seem better than he really is. And this happens throughout the story. Everything is built to frame Zayd as a saint, as like a better person than he really is, to excuse what he does to Adeline. And it just could have been handled a lot better, and it should have been handled better. He could have still been this morally gray anti-hero while having a strong moral compass. It would still make him an interesting character, and it can still be spun so that the morals are the reason why he turns to these darker methods to achieve his goals. He's fighting corruption and human trafficking, and that's already a very incredibly noble pursuit. But over the years, he's been traumatized from what he's seen and what he's had to do, and now he has to fight fire with fire. He's got to kidnap, kill, and torture to save these innocent people, but he doesn't let that change him to the point of hurting those who don't deserve it. If you want to push the boundaries a little bit, but have him thinking of forcing Adeline to be with him, and then fighting that urge within himself. He sees that corruptive influence and he's actively fighting against it, despite the fact that he desperately wants Adeline to be with him. That's juicy internal conflict. Him being so beaten down by years of witnessing these awful things that it's tainted him, but he can still see the corrupted influence and is fighting it. His paranoia pushes him to stalk her house at night to make sure that she's okay, but he still respects that boundary and stays out of the house, while ensuring her safety without crossing the line into home invasion. And like a decent person, during the day, he can ask her out instead of terrorizing her. So that you have these, Adeline uses she calls his eyes yin and yang later on in the book to describe the sort of dichotomy between light and dark that he has in him. It's not there. The author's trying to put it there, but it's not there. It's all just dark. But we could have had light and dark. We could have had him be this hero, and then at night or at his darker side is this tainted, corrupted being that is fighting him. He's fighting himself inside and out with Adeline. So during the day he dates her, he asks her out, he protects her, and then at night he's at her house watching to make sure that she's okay, because he can't not think about what could happen. And because he sees it every day. He sees it every day in his job. He sees what happens to women and girls and boys who get kidnapped and taken and sold. He knows what is happening in this seedy underbelly of the world, and he can't turn that part of his brain off. So during the day, like a decent human being, he dates her, he asks her out, they go and have their fun time, and then at night he's stalking her house. None of this was handled well at all. Premise of a corrupted hero in a romance novel is so interesting. But too bad we just got narcissistic douchebag instead. Chapter 21. Stewing. Nana used to make this god-awful stew when I was younger. It smelled like a dumpster fire and tasted even worse. My attitude is about as foul as that stew right now. I keep saying stool instead of stew. I've done this recording twice now. Try again. I'm stewing. Nana used to make this god-awful stew when I was younger. It smelled like a dumpster fire and tasted even worse. My attitude is about as foul as that stew right now. Poetic. Absolutely beautiful. Aspiring authors, eat your hearts out. Dea is there with Adeline, finally telling her what's been happening with Zaid. She puffs out of breath and settles back down in her chair, scooting back into the island in my kitchen and grabbing her margarita. She sucks down 2 huge gulps, trepidation on her face. You guesses? Lifting a hand to fiddle with the nose ring. The images those words just put in my head have my blood pressure rising to dangerous levels. I bite my lip and shake my head slowly, the guilty look still present on my face. He sucked you? When I just stare, the guilt in my eyes burning brighter, her mouth pops open and her eyes round. Bitch, she shouts. She leans in closer, an unreadable emotion flaring in her eyes. Was it consensual? And this is where I get tripped up, because it wasn't. But had he kept going, had he stripped his clothes from his body and I can't say with absolute certainty that I would have stopped him or that I would have wanted to. Bitch, you couldn't have. You couldn't have stopped him, wanted to or not. It wasn't consensual at first. I say the last part like a question, embarrassed that I'm even admitting something like that. She blinks. At first? She echoes, meaning what? He was that good that he changed your mind? My hands cover my face, but she forces them away, nearly bumping her nose into mine as she intently waits for an answer. You have such pretty eyes, I tell her. She snarls at me. Spills. I close my eyes with a resigned sigh. That man ate the soul of my body out of my body, and I don't think I've gotten it back yet. Yuck. 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 She jerks back, surprise in her pale green irises. I know. You can judge me. I'm judging me too, I say pitifully. I slide her margarita over to me and finish it off. Mine's been gone since I first told her he broke in. Baby girl, I'm not judging you, but let me get this straight. You egged him on in a text because you felt like a bad bitch, and then he broke in to make good on his promise, tied your ass up, and you freaked out at first, but ended up riding his face. She summarized slowly. Ugh. Once again, just a friendly reminder that no is a full sentence, and she was fighting against him nearly the entire time. Okay, so she did not want it. He forced it on her. And Zaid's explanation for why he didn't, just ask her out was that he didn't want her to fall in love with something fake. I lifted my head, a frown on my face. Yeah, he said he didn't want me to fall in love with something fake. He pretty much said he's showing me who he really is, instead of lying to me about it. The fact that he thinks he can make me fall in love with him in the first place goes to show how deranged he is. Yeah, that's oddly nice, but really, there's something wrong with him, but we knew that from the chopped off hands.
My stomach was making the rumblies.
Lovely. Lovely. They move on to the Gigi thing, and then Dea gives us this. Addie, I love you, but I'm gonna say this with all my love, but don't project. I'm starting to get the feeling that you want Ronaldo to be the killer because in your head, that would criminalize your stalker too. Please tell me that's not why you're seeking justice for Gigi, because you're looking for a reason to hate your stalker when in actuality, you don't. He's a criminal. He's already a criminal. He doesn't need to be criminalized. He's already a criminal. Also, I think I forgot to mention it. Ronaldo was Gigi's, her great grandmother, Nana's mother, stalker. So it's like the story is trying to kind of be like, oh, history is repeating itself. They're reincarnated. They've always been doing this. Their souls tethered together. Also, Dea is gonna do, and not just Dea, but several people in this story are gonna flip flop back and forth on some of the things that they say. Dea goes kind of wishy washy on whether or not Adeline is supposed to like Zaid. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. But they spend the rest of the chapter finding more info on Gigi and Ronaldo. Time skip and not a new chapter. Adeline and Dea are drunk. I ended up drinking 2 more margaritas, and Dea had the bright idea to take some more tequila shots. Our world spins as I stumble up the stairs, a giggling Dea on my heels. We're both on all fours, our hands planted on the dirty wooden floors so we don't fall. Why did you make me drink this much? I asked, giggling harder when I almost toppled sideways. I felt like it was appropriate. While we were investigating a murder, she stutters, her voice wobbly and filled with giggles. So Adeline takes Dea to the guest room, helps her get into bed, and then stumbles to bed herself, falling onto the bed fully dressed, and is out. Time skip. Zaid is there. He was waking her up. She's still sloshed, which for some reason he doesn't like, but he doesn't say too much about. A brush of skin across my cheek wakes me up. I groan. My world is still spinning as I open my crusted eyes and see my shadow standing by my bed, brushing the hair from my face. Oh great, I grumble. You're here. Little mouse, are you drunk? Way to ask the obvious, I mumble, slurping up some drool that's leaked out of my mouth. I'm still too drunk to be embarrassed. Shakily, I sit up and stare around the room. The lights are still on. I guess I forgot to turn them off. And it feels wrong to see my stalker in anything but the darkness. It makes him more real, and I don't like that. Yeah, I feel like him breaking into your house, it makes him more real, breaking into your home constantly is. Come on. So she gets up, gets undressed, and then I climb up onto the bed in nothing but a bra, a t-shirt, and my purple thong. Just a friendly PSA for those who might need to hear it. Thongs are usually for special occasions and like short wear times. You don't need to wear thongs for long periods of time all the time. And so far, that's all Adeline wears, and I'm starting to see why she's always dripping wet. She might have a yeast infection. Somebody please send her some Monostat. So she's feeling a little bit bolder with all the alcohol in her system, and they've kind of been teasing each other back and forth, which, again, if he wasn't a criminal, would be kind of cute. The like bantering back and forth, but he is a criminal, and he did, again, I would like to remind everybody, break into her home and assault her. And he's breaking in again. So she's decided to start calling him Kitty Cat because he calls her Little Mouse. And again, the author's hand is around your throat and she's shaking you. Did you get it? Did you get it? Did you get it? Did you get it? He doesn't sound too fond of this nickname, especially when it concerns her moaning it. Oh my god. But she decides to tease him a little bit more because again, she's drunk. So she climbs in a bed, grabs a pillow, and straddles it. Addie, he growls, his warning. The deep rumble is gathering between my thighs. It's unfair how his voice has a physical effect on my body, but I guess right now it works for me. I grind on the pillow, tip my head back, and moan, Kitty Cat. I squeak when I see his hand flying towards my face from my peripheral. The alcohol has sucked away all of my reflexes, so when his hand grabs my hair roughly, I can do nothing to stop it. I don't think you could have done anything regardless of whether or not you were drunk, but... So he's getting kind of rough and she's kind of into it, but we keep getting these, like, thoughts from her about, like, wanting to get away from him and him being dangerous and her being scared, and it's very, like, it's very not sexy. He finally gives her his name, and then he tells her that's the only name that she's ever going to be moaning ever again, because remember back when he took Archie and then broke into her house the first time, he did let her know that there would be nobody else for her, and if there was somebody else, he would hurt them both. So I just wanted to bring that back up as a little reminder. But anyway, moving on. Gonna assault me again? Is it gonna be you forcing your time? I spit at him, narrowing my eyes into thin, hateful slits. I thought about it, he emits in a contemplative murmur. I would love to see you swallowing my tonight. There's a but, and in my drunken state, I'm almost offended. I quirk a brow, but even I know it doesn't have the same effect as him doing it. But you're still inebriated, and you'd vomit all over my the second it touches the back of your throat. Okay. Alright, lovely, isn't he? Just a peach? My mouth pops open in shock. I would not, you asshole! I squirm away from him, but he reinforces his hold on my hair and keeps me still. Always forcing me. See what I mean about Adeline almost being, like, self-aware, and it's like every time she kind of gets there, the story, like, pulls her back down again. He laughs, a dark, cruel laugh, but it also transforms his face right into the devil's, handsome and ruthless. Are you saying you want to try? He taunts, his eyes glittering in the moonlight. I scowl at him, never. You know what? You're right. I would vomit, but not because I can't handle your puny, but because I would be so disgusted by it. The venomous words spew from my mouth without permission. Oh, without preservation, sorry. So, she calls his puny, and what happens next is just, like, it's supposed to be sexy, but it's not, because you can kind of, there's this like undercurrent with the way that he speaks and acts that makes him come across as like pissed off, like genuinely angry, and like this, it's not pretty. He stares at me and I hold my breath, waiting for him to snap, to murder me, hurt me, do something. When his free hand reaches to his zipper and slowly pulls it down, I know I fucked up. I stare at his hand movement like he's about to open a jar of spiders. He pops the button on his jeans and then stills for a beat. A gasp bursts from my throat as he wrenches my head roughly to his pelvis, right as he pulls out his cock. Fine, fuck, okay. So maybe his dick is the exact opposite of puny and would surely kill me if he did decide to choke me on it. And maybe it wouldn't be the worst way to die. when it's the most mouth-watering thing I've ever seen. It's otherworldly. So he is not asked. First of all, he broke into her home. She's still kind of drunk. And he's literally holding her head, like right on his penis. He's holding it. He hasn't asked her if this is what she wants at all. They haven't had a conversation about her actually wanting anything. And he won't let her go. But this next description is a little bit weird. I stare at him in disgust, but my face is a mask of lies, and the fucker knows it. He starts to pump back, gripping it tightly, the veins bulging beneath his grip. Even swallowed in his large hand, it looks intimidating. For some reason, I just imagine him holding like a baby carrot. So he starts like jerking himself off, and she goes, "What are you doing?" And then he slaps her with it. He slaps her with it. So she figures out what he's about to do. And so she wants out. "Me go," I hiss, pushing both of my hands against his thick thighs. He lets go of the dick and darts his hand up to my face, squishing my cheeks painfully together. My teeth bite into the sensitive flesh, but he doesn't let up. Tears line the edges of my lids, threatening to spill over as he leans down and bares his teeth in a vicious snarl. That fear holds me completely immobile. Finally, I feel the terror penetrate my thick skull. Because this man could easily kill me, my bravery is sucked out of me like a vacuum, and I melt into a puddle of fear and hatred. Oh my god, please send 911 to her, please. You want to act brave? Then I'm going to show you exactly what happens to smart mouths. You're going to swallow my like the fucking bad girl that you are. And I don't give a if you don't like it. He roughly lets my face go, and the hand still tangled in my hair yanks me back to its previous position. I glare up at him through blurred eyes, but if anything, the sight only spurs him on. He pumps the cock in quick, rough tugs. It doesn't take long before he's growling again, the veins in his neck tightening. He makes her say his name. He sucked in a sharp breath. "Open your mouth, little mouse, now." When I refuse, he slaps his dick across my face again, this time harder. I'm getting tired of him slapping me. Rage burns hotter, and I'm tempted to reach over and bite the tip of his severed completely. "You really want to test me right now?" he challenges, cocking that damn brow and breathing heavily. Desire shines in his yin-yang pools, and although he's punishing me, he's staring down at me like I'm a priceless jewel. Are you sure that's what he's doing? Because I don't think this is how you treat people that you love. With reluctance, I open my mouth, hatred spewing in my eyes. He flashes a sinister smile before he says, "Now thank me." I go rigid, fury spiking hot. He wants me to do what? But thank me for letting you swallow on my cum, Adeline. A dark edge creeps into his tone, and I just can't let go of the fear, even as I work up the nerve to deny him. Images of him holding a gun to my face and pinning my tied-up body to the bed as he took what he wanted flashed in my mind, fortifying the terror in my bones. Ugh. "Thank you," I choke out angrily. As soon as I say the words, ropes of are spurting from his dick right into my mouth. Want to throw up? When the last bit of must tip it into my lips, he grabs my face again, pinching my cheeks together and preventing me from spitting it all back out on him like I plan to. "Swallow," he demands, his voice dark and full of warning. I do, because I have no other choice. His teeth slides down my throat alongside a mouthful of hateful words. I want to spit at him. I refrain for now. The situation has cleared the alcohol-induced fog, and in the moment I feel stone cold sober. The whole thing was very gross. It was intended to be sexy. It was not sexy at all. And he seriously came across as pissed off about her calling it small. And because of that, he literally holds her hostage and makes her swallow. He's holding her mouth and then jizzes on her face and makes her swallow it. Like, deserves to be on the sex offender registry list. Chapter 22. Adeline is at a restaurant. Zayd has nothing better to do but follow her around, and he runs into Mark while he's out and about, and like a dumbass, somehow manages to lead Mark right to Adeline. They pass by the restaurant she's in, and Mark wants to go inside. The waitress takes them out to the patio, and they end up seated about 5 feet away from Adeline. They talk business for a while. Zayd is trying to get He's trying to get on Mark's side. Mark is a member of like a secret society that like kidnaps and kills kids, and also he's a pedophile. So he's like undercover, he's doing his thing. He notices Mark making eyes with on like a little girl, and he plays along to like try and gain his trust. And then after a while, Mark finally catches sight of Adeline, and he pulls out his phone and takes a photo, and he's about to send it to somebody when Zaid comes clean and says she's his. Mark is kind of sus about it. He doesn't buy it right away, and then Zaid says that he wanted to leave her alone so that she could work. And eventually he ends up selling it. My girl lives in a peaceful little bubble when she writes her books. She doesn't like to be bothered when working, and I respect her space, especially because it allows me the freedom to do whatever I please without her worrying about what I'm doing. Add a sprinkle of adulterous implications in there, and Mark immediately relates. He laughs, his yellow teeth on full display. I knew I liked you, he chuckles, his crow's feet deepening. I squeeze his phone, the device still trapped between both of our hands. Delete the photo, Mark. Mark's eyes bug. Oh, of course. I'm terribly sorry, Zach. I didn't mean to offend. I had no idea. Oh, also, Zaid gives Mark a fake name, and it's Zach. Also, Zaid's vigilante organization is called Z. His name is Zaid, and he gives Mark a fake name of Zach. That's a lot of Z's all connecting, and no one puts the dots together. Anyway, he deletes it, and then Zaid goes, I'll be hacking into his phone later to confirm it was permanently deleted. All thinks I'm done, so doesn't know what a cloud is, or that you can access your trash and reload the photo. Mark still wants to go over there, and introduce himself because of the plot. He needs to go introduce himself. I hurry after him, sensing the incoming danger, whether it's from Mark or me, I'm not sure. She looks up, and her gaze clashes with mine. Instantly, her eyes widen into caramel marbles. What does that mean? So Mark sits down, introduces himself, and also I'm just kind of like, I just remembered, isn't he a senator or like a congressman? Where is this man's bodyguards? Where is his security detail? He's just out gallivanting around town, not a care in the world? Like, I think not, sir. Where is your detail? So Mark introduces Zaid as Zach, and Zaid, like a dumbass, gives Mark a name. He says her name is Addie. Why didn't he come up with a fake name to protect her from this very powerful, very nasty man? The world may never know. And then she goes on to give Mark her full legal name, and I'm just like, what is happening? What is happening here? Zaid knows exactly what Mark is into, what he does. Like, he knows everything about him. That's why he's like doing this undercover work. Why would he not like? And Zaid answered before Adeline could. Mark goes, "What's your name?" And then Zaid, oh my god, Zaid says her name is Addie. Why didn't he throw out a fake name? Or her name is Matilda or something. Something that's not anywhere near her full legal real name. It's because the plot needs to happen, that's why. Like, none of these characters are smart. They're just being led around by the nose by the plot. So Addie goes, "It's nice to meet you," and he goes, "The pleasure is mine. You have a beautiful name. What is it short for?" She clears her throat, throwing me another what the fuck glance. Adeline. Zaid had a golden opportunity, and he any name. He could have thrown out any name, and she would have rolled with it, because she continues to like kind of go along with him on this. She would have rolled with it, and it not only protects her but clues her in that something isn't right. Like, she kind of catches the vibe right away, but if he had thrown out a completely fake name, it would have clued her in right away. Like, something's not right here, and let me play along. But no, he gives Adeline's full name, and I am so confused as to why. Like, this smart man who runs an organization that protects women and children dropped the ball so hard. Why not just give her like her address and social security number too while you're at it, dumb? Right, Mark, let's leave my girl to get back to work. Her eyes narrow into slits briefly when I say my girl. I subtly quirk a brow, daring her to defy me. She knows I'm not saying it for Mark's benefit. She's going to hear me call her my girl for a long fucking time. Next, we'll graduate to my wife and then mother of my children. Ladies, that's called entrapment. Please run. I really hope Zaid gets hit by a bus, but I know Carlton loves him too much for that. So Mark leaves to take a call, and Adeline does the only smart thing I've ever seen her do this whole book, and she packs up and tries to leave, but Zaid stops her. He tells her that she needs to play along, she's in lots of danger, blah 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 blah. Mark comes back wanting to know what she was working on, and then all of her brain cells just dissipate because she tells him about Gigi's murder. Absolutely brilliant, because now Mark knows exactly who she is, where she lives, what she does. But lucky for Adeline, his dad worked the case or knows about the case, and so he gives her some extra info about Gigi's murder. And again, this whole subplot doesn't matter. I have literally skipped all of the journal entries and basically all the information concerning Gigi's murder, and I literally still know what's going on. That's how much it doesn't matter. And I know why the author did this whole scene. It was because she needed Adeline to be in danger later on for the plot. But in the story, it doesn't make sense. It almost seems like Zaid wanted her to be in danger so that he could swoop in later and save her. He could have given Mark any name and been like, oh, she's just visiting from out of town, and then slipped away to ask Jay to make a fake profile in a town 7 states away, and that would have given him plenty of time to hide Adeline while Mark's men are chasing a dead lead. But what does he do instead? He gives away her actual name and then stops her when she tries to leave so that she can give the rest of the info that Mark needs on her. My disappointment is immeasurable and my day is ruined. So Mark cuts the party short. He's gotta go handle business, but he does invite them to a charity event. Oh, I don't know, Addie says, the discomfort renewed. The last thing she wants is to pretend to be my girlfriend any longer than she has to. I wonder what she's going to do when we're married. And her belly is swollen with my child. So Adeline finally relents. She still, doesn't want to go, but she wants to know more about Gigi, and Mark kind of holds that over her head like we knew he would. And this whole time, he's manipulating her, and that's a big no-no. No one manipulates my girl but me. Hold on while I go get my bus driver CDL. Somebody's gotta take this. So Mark gets another call, pays the tab, and then leaves, and Zaid walks Adeline to her car. I'm not letting you within 10 feet of that place. Him even knowing about you was never supposed to happen, I say firmly. Well, maybe. You should have given him a fake name. And then Adeline probably wouldn't have given Mark her whole life story, and then he wouldn't have something to hold over her, you idiot. So I'm gonna back up a little bit. When Mark and Adeline are talking about Gigi's murder, Zaid is thinking this. Addie's eyes are wide with excitement. Clearly she cares. Solving Gigi's murder means a lot to her. But I know she's only trying to prove something to herself. If it wasn't for the fact that she has her own stalker, I don't know if Addie would have even bothered figuring out who murdered her great-grandmother. It's not about finding out who did it, it's about proving it was Gigi's stalker and no one else. I get the feeling that if she can 100% actually prove it, then it'll cement the fact that all stalkers are murderous psychos and she can finally hate me and shut me out for good. But you are a murderous psycho. She's literally afraid of you. You keep breaking into her home, you keep assaulting her. She shouldn't need Gigi's murder to prove to herself that you're fucking dangerous because you keep proving it. So they leave the restaurant. They're walking out to her car. He's walking her out to her car. They're discussing going to this party. Even though Zaid just said that he wouldn't let her go, she's insistent. And he kind of needs her a little bit to sort of get on Mark's good side. Afterwards, we can pretend to break up. You can actually get out of my life while you're at it. Maybe take Max and them with you, and then that'll be the end of it. I cock a brow and her eyes latch onto the movement. It's not that simple when it comes to the underbelly of society. When you're dealing with seriously evil people, you don't just get out. Mark has his eyes on Maddie, whether she realizes it or not, and if we break up, which would never happen, she's free game. If Zaid actually cared, again, he would have given Mark a fake name and had Jay make a profile and then shipped Addie out to a safe place. But he doesn't actually care. He wants to be the knight in shining armor, and instead of sending her away which would be the smart thing because he knows Mark has his eyes on Adeline now. Instead of exposing her to more of him, he would send her away somewhere safe. But no, he wants to be the knight in shining armor that rescues and protects and loves her, and he's taking her to the party. So he proceeds to suck on her face a little bit, and we get a lot of cringy dialogue. They're basically dry humping each other in full view of a family. And Zayd has no shame at all, which is strange, like, because he rescues kids from sex trafficking. And he's basically like all up in Adeline's cracks. Like a mom and daughter walk by, and the daughter is like staring at them, like, "Are they having sex, mommy?" And the mom is like glaring at Zayd, and he just like smirks over his shoulder at her, like it's no big deal. Like, bro, you're feeling Adeline up in public, in full view of people, and zero shame. He doesn't have any like negative thoughts about this at all. He like smirks at the mom who like ushers her daughter into the car, and I'm just like, ew. Oh, like he's smirking at the mom like a predator. Penny, get in the car as my mother snaps from somewhere behind me. Addie's rounded eyes drift over my shoulder, and whatever she sees is her face reddening to a concerning color. She's panting heavily and flushed from both embarrassment and desire. I turn my head to the side, glimpsing over my shoulder to see a blonde woman ushering her small child into the car. Her own face is red. She catches me looking and smirks and shoots me a scornful glare. I just smirk and turn back to my trembling little mouse. Yep, but do you see? Do you see? Like, he's not a good person. He's not a good character. He's not a good love interest. I want to run him over. So Adeline admonishes him for this, gets in her car, and like leaves. And we get this. Then she seems to shake herself because she looks at him in the mirror. Then she seems to shake herself, start her car, and speed off, tires squealing from the urgency to get away from me. I love it when she runs. This man deserves jail. Not a happy ending. Jail. Chapter 23. Dea and Adeline are talking about what happens, and Dea figures out that Zach is Zayd, but also Z, and she works for him, and Adeline is shocked. Oh, a vigilante? Gasp. The fact that he calls his organization Z kind of reminds me of like the main character from V for Vendetta, and I wonder if that's what the author was going for. I can like see a lot of this book's influences, like a lot of it's like everything that kind of it pulls from a lot of different books and a lot of different movies and a lot of different stories, and it somehow manages to do all of them dirty. I've heard of Z from social media and news outlets. It's a massive vigilante organization built around destroying the government. Basically, the government's public enemy number one. I knew Day was a vigilante of sorts. I just didn't know she did it for Z. In that case, it doesn't sound like she is aware of a connection between Mark and the organization. And if Zayd is indeed who she thinks he is, that means I'm now involved in something so much more than I thought it was, even if Dea is ignorant to it. God, could Zayd really be Z? It would explain his inexplicable ability to get past my security cameras, but more than that, it would explain him befriending and hiding his real identity from a goddamn senator. How the hell did I get so unlucky that the ultimate hacker would stalk me? I never really stood a chance. Nope, no you didn't. You never stood a chance. Thanks for realizing it. Okay, so we get this next weird bit from Dea. She goes, "Addie, I love you, but you're crazy. There are other routes to look at. You don't need to go to a goddamn senator's party with a fucking stalker to get a little bit of information. A stalker that might be a world-renowned hacker and vigilante." Right, totally valid point. Yes, totally valid point. And then she almost immediately switches up. Adeline goes, "I know he'll protect me," and then Dea goes, "Honestly, I don't doubt that, Addie. If he is who I think he is, he's doing some good in the world, and he's clearly obsessed with you in a very unhealthy manner, but from the sound of it, he's not the typical stalker where he's out to murder you. I think he just really, really wants to be with you and is handling it in a very creepy fucking manner." So Dea goes from, "You're crazy, he's a stalker, you don't go to this party with him," to immediately like, "But you know what? He's doing good in the world, so he must be a good man in disguise." Like, that was a very fast switch up. Where the fuck did it come from? Adeline's like smart, outgoing, fierce friend is basically gaslighting her. And then it's like almost like Adeline is gaslighting herself as well. Like, you know, he's a stalker. He's not good. He's bad. But like, why is this book trying to convince us that stalkers aren't bad? Stalking somebody is bad. And Zaid is a criminal. Like, why is this book trying to spin him in such a good light? Like I said earlier, when this book is like everything in this book was designed to frame Zaid in a good light, and now it's apologizing for stalking. I don't get it. So Adeline is getting ready for this gala event thing, and she's got on a very, very eye-catching, sexy red dress with a high slit, and apparently Zaid sent it to her. I don't remember ever having that scene. I might have skipped it, but like if you've read this book, is there actually a scene where he gives her a dress? Because all I remember is him leaving roses, so I'm just like, where the hell did this dress come from? But that's not the important part. Zaid, the guy who knows what these people are up to, knows the kind of person that Mark is, sends her the most over the top look at me dress that he can fucking find. He should know better. He is so wildly incompetent, or he wants her to get in trouble. He wants her to get in trouble. He wants her to get on somebody's radar, even more than she already is, so that she can get kidnapped and he can swoop in and save the day. I twist my red painted lips and give myself a slow perusal in the mirror. I'm wearing a red strapless gown, the top half encrusted with thousands of tiny diamonds throughout the lacy material. The bottom half molds to my body like a second skin with a large slit slicing all the way up to mid-thigh. Diamond strappy gold heels adorn my feet while my hair is curled into beach waves, the tendrils falling around my shoulders. It's both sexy and elegant. Yeah, it's attention catching, and you're going to a party full of people who kidnap women and children. Make it make sense, because I can't make it make sense. Yep. Zaid is in his Mustang, of course, with his little baby carrot wiener, and get a load of this. Zaid picks me up in a classic Mustang. The metal gleams in the moonlight, glinting off the rock in the sky as if it was built to be seen after sundown. Okay, so I might have written that down wrong because it's weird. I'm gonna pull it straight from the book. Zaid picks me up in a classic Mustang. The metal gleams in the moonlight, glinting off the rock in the sky as if it was built to be seen after sundown. Nope, still weird. Before I can make my way to the car, his driver's side door is swinging open and a suit-clad leg is stepping out. Oxygen crystallizes in my lungs. Whatever. So they're like super into each other. I'm not reading it. I will read you this though. Zaid is Hades stepping out from the underworld and wreaking havoc on my quiet little life. No, ma'am, that is Zeus, and expect to be turned into a plant shortly. So she's way more into him now. And again, I'm just constantly reminded that he did the most for no reason. Like, she could have been into him from the get-go, and had he just gone up to her in the bookstore and asked her out to dinner, like, all the breaking and entering and assault weren't needed. And at this point, I think Adeline is gaslighting herself into accepting what happened because of the trauma, and that she wants to like him. And also, she's terrified. He didn't give her the option not to like him, and it even threatened her with bodily harm if she didn't comply. And every single time after that he's constantly like threatening her, either overtly or covertly. Everything that he does is like, it's almost like it's by design to make her scared of him, too scared to leave. This is not a romance, but it could have been. You're fucking magnificent, he growls as he stalks towards me, his shiny shoes reflecting in the moonlight. His voice is deeper than normal, smokier, deadlier. Two things. One, they're going to a gala with a bunch of powerful, dangerous men who kidnap and traffic women and children. Why would you dress to draw attention? Both of them should be trying to blend in. She shouldn't even be going to this thing in the first place. Like, if Zaid was smart, he'd have kidnapped her and sent her to a safe house. Earlier when I said that he should have been a corrupted hero, Zaid could have been at war with himself, wanting to succumb to his paranoia and whisk her away and wanting to respect her boundaries. He's got two sides. the one that is dating her openly and the one that stalks her house at night to make sure nothing happens. And then he makes a mistake and clues Mark in that she is special. But being the smart cookie that he is, he gives a fake name and she rolls with it. And then later on, Jay can craft a fake identity based on this name that throws Mark off the trail, at least for a while. And then he can't hide it anymore, so he kidnaps her, takes her to a safe house somewhere, and she can start to like get to know this darker side of him. This would be cute. Like this whole interaction between them would be cute if he hadn't spent like the first half of the book assaulting her. This is kind of their like first date going out in public moment. It's unofficially official. Like their relationship is officially unofficial at this point. But it has no weight at all because Zayd is a 10 out of 10 dirtbag of the year. He kisses her and he rips her coat off to see what she's wearing because he has zero self control. Absolute zero. A cold sweat breaks out across my forehead. I feel exposed, and the way he looks at me is searing me from the inside out. I'm just really fucking uncomfortable right now. Yeah, same. Super sexy. So she asks him for her coat back, and instead of giving it back to her, he just grabbed her hand and is looking at it. What the hell are you doing, Zayd? The slightest curl to his lip in my mouth instantly dries. Fuck, these sentences are weird. I'll never get over how easily he morphs from man to beast. Just trying to picture what ring would look best on your finger, he says lightly. What if I don't want one? I would say no. Slowly he drags his eyes up to mine, and the intensity of his stare has me questioning why I can't just fucking be agreeable for once. What? What? Why I just can't be agreeable for once. You don't need to be agreeable, Adeline. He is stalking you. He is assaulting you. He is a criminal, and you are a victim. You do not need to be agreeable. In fact, you need to stab him in the eye. Oh my god, this girl needs therapy, and I need a shot glass. He grabs her by the throat. You can put a collar on this pretty neck of yours instead, then you wouldn't have the option to say no. Drag her around the cave by her hair too, you fucking caveman. You would just be my good little girl that does whatever your master says. Would you like that better, baby? Friendly reminder that this dude saves sex trafficked girls from predators. And also, he never got consent from her for any of this. He just does it. She fires back that he doesn't own her. He still has her by the throat, by the way. And he makes her take his belt off, holding it between them like it's a dead snake. With a grin still on his smug face, he grabs it from me and lets my throat go. Just as I suck in a deep breath, he's wrapping the belt around my neck, looping it through the buckle and pulling tight. My eyes bulge like a fish, the metal biting into my skin as the belt constricts. I have no words. He doesn't deserve jail. He deserves a firing squad. Has anyone ever seen that fourth Rambo, like the fourth Rambo movie, the one where the missionaries get taken by the military and one of the guys gets a little too smart-mouthed and they string him up in the pen with the pigs? That's what he needs. A good long timeout, like maybe forever. Under the threat of strangulation, he makes her get on her knees and suck him off. His little baby carried. Crimes are being committed. So he starts talking shit while she's sucking him off, and she grazes her teeth over his. And this son of a bitch, this baby carrot limp fucker, threatens to snap her jaw before her teeth break skin. I fucking dare you, little mouse. You think I won't be able to snap your jaw before your teeth break skin? Try me. Love interest? I think not. I think violent assailant. If you're confused on the logistics, he would have to punch her. She's on her knees in front of him, and he would ball up his big, meaty fist and punch her in the side of the face. But it's okay because he's hot, right? So she thinks, I'm tempted, but I believe him. She believes him. She fully believes he's capable of breaking her jaw. If you're this far into the book and you've been holding on to the idea that maybe she's just playing hard to get and she really is turned on by everything and is into it, read that line again. Read it again and let it sit with you for a minute. She's wet, but at this point, I don't believe her. I think Adeline is an unreliable narrator. It strikes me as her just being too scared not to get aroused. Like, this isn't kink. There's no trust, no consent, no nothing. It's manipulation, coercion, abuse, and assault. Eyes lock on his near-crazed eyes. The hand in my hair flexes until I can no longer move my own violation. My only warning that his control has snapped. The belt tightens again and my head is held immobile as he drives his cock in my throat. I gag, tears spilling over my lids, but it only seems to incite him further. He withdraws nearly to the tip before he's driving his hips forward until my mouth is stuffed full. Are you gonna swallow my good little girl? He bites out. I can't move or actually answer him. The only thing I can do is brace myself as he buries himself deep and spills down my throat. He roars, growling as he floods my mouth faster than I can swallow. His seed slips from my lips and drips down my chin. I can't breathe. Neither can I, Eddie. I can hardly think anymore. My lungs are deprived of oxygen, and just when I think I'm going to black out, he jerks himself out with a grunt, releasing the belt as he does. I suck in a deep breath, coughing and hacking as I try to regain everything I lost: air, morals, even some of my hair. But I didn't lose my damn dignity. Are you sure? Are you sure? So they get in the car and they leave, and Zaid finally tells the truth. He explains what he does for a living, going on and on and on about how he saves the world and shit. Ugh. Zaid is not doing any of this out of the kindness of his heart, by the way. He owns a hacking company, and he has the financial interest in breaking up these trafficking rings. He makes money doing this. He has to, otherwise he wouldn't be able to do it. He either gets paid by somebody or he takes money, steals it. Somehow he's getting paid. And he has employees. They're not just working for free. He gets money some kind of way. Oh, but he saves kids, so it's fine. What if he was a cop who saves people and then goes home and beats his wife and kids every night? He's not a saint. He's just a dude who does his job, gets paid, and then goes home and commit crimes. He's built up a reputation that would help cover his trail. Who's gonna suspect the guy that hunts down PDFs is a rapist himself? This whole exchange of him saving people from sex trafficking is used to soften Adeline, just as he intended, and it works. He tells her what Mark has been up to in his spare time and the purpose of the gala, and that he'll protect her, and I can't help but roll my eyes. I believe you'll protect me from Mark, but who's gonna protect me from you? His gaze sweeps the entirety of my body, and his eyes blaze with possessiveness. Whoever tries is gonna end up dead. Criminal. They go back and forth some more. I'm fucked in the head, and dealing with this man, I am beyond stressed. I can't be good for my skin. Yeah, priorities are straight. Still, both prospects have shifted the way I look at him. The latter shouldn't by any means, considering he just lodged his my throat while strangling me with a belt 5 minutes ago. See what I mean about unreliable narrator? She absolutely should not be softened towards him. She shouldn't be. And she's, admitting it to herself, but still, the story keeps dragging her back down. Every time she reaches that point of, awareness, it's the story drags her back down. And it's, it almost feels like the reader's being gaslit, too, and I don't like it. Chapter 24. He gives us a rundown on their story, they're happily married and whatever, or they're happily dating. I can't remember. I don't care. But they have a story to stick to. My eyes snap to his. He's been going to gentlemen's clubs, as in the clubs that offer up women on a silver platter for men to get their rocks off to. Rich people gentlemen clubs at that. One's occupied by corrupt sadists. Who knows what happens in those places to those poor women? 2 things. 1, women go to strip clubs too, okay? And 2, some strippers make a lot of money and don't have to touch anybody. Not all of them are there by force or desperation. Some of them are paying off college and fucking houses. Worry about yourself, you judgmental Judy. And a side note, you know what movie does demure housewife looking for a thrill and adventure and coming into her own as a woman? True Lies. Super cute movie. So they're going back and forth, and again, I roll my eyes. Wash, rinse, repeat. Don't speak of your personal life. Nothing that means anything to you anyways. You're here to get information on Gigi, and that's incentive enough. Don't speak about your personal life. It's too late for that, first of all, because he has her name. He knows who she is. Like, why does no? Don't speak about your personal life. It doesn't matter anymore. He already knows who she is, and like Mark runs the whole thing, or is at least deeply enough involved in it that he's probably already told other people about her. So it doesn't matter. Don't speak about your personal life. Ugh. Like, it's just too late. Like, I guarantee you, Mark has a file folder on his desk with all her info, and he's probably had it for hours. Like, and you practically handed it to him on a platter, you dumbass. They get there. Adeline doesn't like the house. Mark's house is ostentatious, a massive white monstrosity with 5 huge pillars and a million windows. In my opinion, the house is ugly, typical, and downright boring. Ebony darkness dimension Raven Way. This lives in her own mansion, by the way. The inside is even worse. I walk into a large, wide hallway with picture frames lining either side of the wall of who I assume is Mark's family. My heels click against the ivory tile, and I can't help but think this is going to turn brown over all these shoes that I'll be treading across it. Fix your face, Sade murmurs from beside me. It's not until he speaks that I realize my face is screwed up with a look of disgust. Not because the place is ugly, but because it's so damn pretentious and flashy. I don't need to see the rest of the house to know that this place screams, look at me. I have a gazillion dollars and have no intention of sharing that wealth with millions of starving families around the world. Oh, I see Zaid isn't the only hypocrite. Adeline, super successful best-selling author, I can live anywhere I want, inherits a mansion, and renovates it. Riley. So they go into a ballroom. They're mingling. Zaid is a natural. He works the room. But then again, so does Adeline. I, on the other hand, am not a natural. The social anxiety licks at my nerves, keeping my heart rate well above a normal pace as I smile at strangers and laugh at everything they say, doing what I do best and manipulating people's emotions with my words. Where's the exit? I would like to get off. She's so socially awkward, but wore a blood red dress with embroidery beads that sparkle and catch the light, and has a slit all the way up to her thigh and a banging body. Socially awkward my fucking ass. Somehow it works to the point of discomfort. All their eyes are ensnared on me as I answer their questions about my career. I heed Zaid's advice and keep it all vague and surface level. Oh, like your personality? Mark comes over eventually, and they hug and they shake hands. Next to Mark must be his wife, an older woman with beautiful red hair the color of ripe cherries. This author loves red hair, matching red lipstick and a black dress that seems to hang on her frail body. She widens her lips into a beautiful smile as Mark introduces her to Zaid and I. What irks me is that he doesn't tell us her name. He just says my wife, as if she's a possession and not her own person with her own identity outside of her marriage to this wretched man. Hitting a little close to home there, huh, little mouse? My girl? The dots are so close, but they never quite connect for any of these characters. It doesn't take a genius to figure out this woman is abused. My eyes subtly search her body, but the high neck and long sleeves and full-length dress hide her body. Does it feel like a mirror, Adeline? Does it feel like you're looking into a mirror, like seeing yourself into the future, maybe? Mark wants Zaid to meet him later, and they wander off to do a rich people host things. Whatever. Chapter 25. If I spend another moment in this stuffy ballroom, I'm gonna start shooting people just to release some tension. Stable. Calm, well-rounded, and down-to-earth. A lovely person. I never thought he could be a serial killer. You can't fool us, Zaid. We know you like to assault Adeline to let off steam. Flashes of her at her knees, that red rose in her hair as she sucked me off with a belt around her dainty neck. Okay, so, that red rose in her hair as she sucked me off with a belt around her dainty neck. Put a pin in that, okay? We're gonna bring it up later. A growl slips free, and it takes monumental effort to bite back a satisfied grin when I feel her tremble. Her reaction is more potent than a drug. It drives me deliriously insane, and the need to wrap my hand around her throat until neither of us can breathe is overwhelming. This woman is gonna reduce me to an animal. The bus has already arrived, sir. And for context, they're supposedly surrounded by people who profit off the selling of children, and all he can think about is screwing her. Time and place. They sneak away into another part of the house, a movie theater, entertainment room. Zayd has her cornered against a wall, and we get more cringe lines that make me want to throw up. My hand slides up to grip her dainty throat, and I can't stop the deep growl from forming. My fingers nearly wrap around the entirety of her neck. I could snap it so easily, bruise it, leave my mark with my tongue and teeth. Serial killer. Serial killer. Every other man in this book was written to prop Zayd up on a pedestal, but all I see are mirrors. They all mirror his personality back to him, but at different stages of life or at slightly different angles. Archie was him in like 10 years. Married, super rich crime lord with lackeys. And Mark is him in like 40 years. Married again, running some shady underground business, who beats his wife and kids. Cheats, smokes, no one there to check him, and too much money to play with. If you were my little girl, I would worship every inch of your body for as long as my souls were tethered to this earth. My tongue would leave no part of you untouched. He keeps calling her little girl again and again. A reminder that he saves kids from trafficking. Let it sink in. So he pulls her over to the seats, and they're watching a scary movie. He makes her sit on his lap. He doesn't ask, he just pulls her down. Gliding my tongue across my bottom lip, I wait until her gaze has been hooked onto the act before I fist the soft fabric of her dress and hike it up until it's pulled around her hips. Stop it, she pants, but I don't listen. She swats at me, but those tiny hands are no match against mine. With wicked intention, I slide both of my hands into the crease of her thigh and jerk them apart. Come close. Listen. Always about sexual gratification. It's about power. Zayd loves to remind Adeline, and by extension the reader, that she has no power here. She has no say. Her autonomy means nothing to him. And if he decides that she's getting her rocks off, then it's happening. And so what if she says no? She doesn't really mean it, like as if he's not with a grown woman, but a child. Wow. Whenever he describes her, Zayd always uses words like small, dainty, innocent. She's got slim shoulders, big round eyes. She's written to look very young, but I think 26 was just an arbitrary number the author threw out because Adeline reads as very young. She's very immature and comes off as more of like 16 or 17. To have Zayd constantly pointing out how little, small, delicate, innocent she is while simultaneously assaulting her. Listen, I'm not saying the author would have written her younger if she thought she could have gotten away with it. What are you doing? She gasps, staring at my creeping hands with trepidation. I lift one to grab her by the jaw and force her to face the screen. Watch the movie, I growl. I'm done. Driver, please stop the bus. I'll walk home. So he holds her still. He makes her watch the movie, and she gets an O. They finish and leave, and a butler finds them in the hallway and delivers them to Mark's office. He does his douchebag rich guy thing, talking about his wife, how his wife loves to spend money decorating the house. Still from Adeline's perspective, so when Mark goes, I'm sure you know how much the ladies love our money, huh, Zach? Adeline is thinking, and there's the cherry on top of his sundae of misogyny. I bet his sundae tastes like bruised skin and a bleeding heart. And that's rich. The Bluetooth is connected, but the headphones are missing. Zayd smiles, the act nearly primal and ripe with danger, a small price to pay when they give us something so priceless every day. And if you ask me, I'd tell you I'm not worthy of it, but I'm a selfish bastard and will accept it anyways, he answers cryptically. I don't know how I know, but I know exactly what he's speaking of. Love. Love is priceless, as Mark's nefarious dealings have proven. Can be bought and is plentiful, whether they're forcing it or getting consent, and despite all the ways Zayd has forced me to my knees for him, the only thing he's ever really wanted from me is to return his addiction. Because that's the one thing he can't take or force. Really? Because it seems like that's what he's doing, and he has openly said that he was gonna take it no matter what. Not just your body, Adeline, but your heart too. He literally says it. He's gonna take it. You have no say. I know exactly what you mean. He chortles. That's Mark. Do you, asshole? She thinks. I shrug a shoulder. I think you're the lucky one, Mark. One look at Claire and you can see she's a strong, capable woman. Those are the most dangerous, I add with a wink. But I know it's falling on deaf ears. Mark is too comfortable in the patriarchy to consider that Claire might shove a knife into his neck while sleeping one night. I'm trying so hard to give Carlton the benefit of the doubt, but she's making it very hard. And I really hope that that's where this is going, that Adeline wakes up one day and puts a knife through Zaid's eye, but I doubt it. Mark exposits some more about Gigi, but it's plotline and it adds nothing, and I hate it so much. They talk a little bit more. Mark's phone keeps ringing. He answers it, but he's drunk, so it slips from his hand. Drunkenly, he drops it, and it's almost painful watching him pick it up. I can hear his bones creaking from here. Yeah, keep saying good morning. You'll get there too. This book has a particular disdain towards seniors, and I don't like it. Like, hate Mark because he's a nasty bitch, because he's old. But it's not just Mark. All the shit Adeline and Dea pulled when they were going through her grandmother's things, and then she just doesn't keep anything. Your beloved grandmother passes away, and she throws out all of her old people things. The only thing she doesn't throw out is the diaries because of plot reasons. As alcohol takes control of his body, all I can focus on is how it seems to age him further. The liver spots on his balding head and darkened hands, and the bags underneath his eyes have formed a few more wrinkles. Do you see? Like, I hate on Mark for being a nasty, abusive rapist because he's older and not attractive. But with Zaid, it gets a pass because he's sinfully attractive. But he's no better. Not by a single shred. No better. Mark gets super drunk and makes a startling confession. He's part of some secret society that kills kids. But a mole has been leaking information on them, and Zaid gets some info on where it's being held and how he can get in, and I think he gets an invite from Mark about showing up there, but there's a time skip. A week has gone by. Zaid is trying to teach Adeline how to fight. You know, because he put a target on her back. But she keeps getting all hot and bothered by it, and she's so small and weak, and she just can't do it. I hate everything. You're too slow. I can see your intent from a mile away. You need to be quicker. Catch me off guard with the swiftness and strength of your attack. He goes through the movements with me 7 more times, keeping his hands loose as he guides my arms. We've been doing this all week. Now that Mark has set his eyes on me, Zaid is paranoid that I will go missing in the dead of night. I have seen his eyes crease with worry when he explains the possible threat looming over my head, a threat far more serious than Max and his cronies. Zaid's men have been lingering outside my place, and I get a feeling they've been there since the moment I walked out of Mark's house. I haven't noticed them until a few days ago, and my lack of awareness did knock some sense into me. The frustration of my situation mounts as I fail once more at breaking free of Zaid's chokehold. I wouldn't need to know any of this shit if Zaid had left me alone, let me live my life in peace and blissful ignorance of the terrors of the world surrounding me. I was happy, bored, but happy. Oh my gosh, are the dots connecting? This is your fault, you know, I hiss, a bead of sweat dripping into my eye. The burn is minuscule compared to the fire raging in my chest. Zaid stills, his eyes study me closely. Is it? He counters. You pretend like you care about me, or whatever you convince yourself that you feel for me, but I've been in danger because of you, and you know that, right? Max would have never come at. He steps into me. My mouth involuntarily snaps shut. His presence is powerful and invokes my will to bend to him. Want it to or not. Don't pretend like fucking Archie would have been the end of it. The man would have dragged you into a life full of pain and suffering, and Max and the rest of them would have stood idly by while Archie destroyed you from the inside out. I saved you from that life. I snarl, but he wouldn't have come after me if you didn't kill Arch. You're right, and that was my mistake to not take out Max when I took down the rest of Archie's family, but I'm not going to apologize for what I did. Had I left you and Archie alone, you would have been hurt and traumatized, and I would have ended up killing him anyway. If I hadn't killed him for touching what's mine, I would have for hurting you instead. Archie's fate was sealed the moment he led you up those stairs. You traumatized me. He leans down and snipes. A gun in your pocket certainly is traumatizing, little mouse, but only because I used it to make you calm and not to make you bleed. Archie was a mirror, and Zaid did not like that. I snarl, refusing to acknowledge that. And Mark? I would have never been on his radar. False, he snaps. Mark didn't show up at Bailey's. Because of me, Adeline, and he wasn't seated where he could get a perfect view of you because of me. I brought no attention to you whatsoever and did my best to keep him distracted, but I can't control a man's wandering eye, even if you're a decade older than his normal taste. You knew I was at Bailey's, I guess, and you knew he was heading there. So why did you not redirect him somewhere else? His spine straightens. Do you think I possess magic and can influence a man to do everything I say? I regret to inform you I can't. All of a sudden, he can't control people. All of a sudden, when she's accusing him of doing exactly what he did, all of a sudden he no longer has the ability to tell people what to do or force them into situations or whatever. All of a sudden now he's not made out of magic and can't influence a man. My blood pressure went up through the roof at this line. And he didn't even try. He walked Mark right by the restaurant. Didn't ask for a table inside, and then when Mark spotted Adeline, didn't try to dissuade him any kind of way. He barely pushed Mark at all. And then when Mark goes over and asks her name, Zayd gives him her name. So he continues to manipulate her into thinking that it's not his fault when really it is. My eyes drop to my toes, and all I can manage to feel is shame. Oh my gosh. He tips my chin up with his finger, and I'm too lost in thought to fight. You're allowed to be angry and frustrated with your situation. You're even allowed to be angry with me stalking you. Life strips you of power often, but what you can control is pointing the blame in the right direction. Don't misplace Max's and Mark's ill intentions onto me when I've been doing my best to keep you safe from them. Okay. What we've been doing all week is to keep you safe. So you can either redirect all the effort you've been putting into acting like a brat and apply it towards something useful, or you can continue to be powerless in the situations life throws you in. He is such a hypocrite. Such a hypocrite. And he wears it proudly. And you know what? If he had left her alone from the get-go, none of this would have happened. I think Archie would have pumped and dumped her and then moved on, but that's not even the worst part. He's directly responsible for Mark knowing who she is. Again, I know I've said it before, but he could have chosen any name, and given it to Mark. What's he do? He gives it her name. And she relents, of course, because she's made out of ice cream. They spar for a little bit more, blah blah blah. It's supposed to be sexy, but again, Zayd is not an attractive person. Chapter 27. She's drifting in and out of sleep when she hears the creak of a door and she jolts awake. When I turn to look at the door, it's firmly closed. My brow crinkles in confusion. Just when I convinced myself I was only hearing things, I see movement out of the corner of my eye, sucking in a sharp breath. I turn and see Zayd standing outside my balcony doors, a red cherry pulsing in the moonlight. Wide awake. I was pulsating, not pulsing, but whatever. Wide awake, I stood up and glare. How long have you been out there, you creep? I snap. Zayd opens the door the rest of the way, smoke billowing from his mouth. A while, he answers flatly. He flicks the butt of a cigarette out over the balcony and
remember, only you can prevent forest fires.
Then reaches up and pulls his hood down from his head. He's off today, the poor baby. I frown, squinting my eyes in an attempt to see his face clearer. There's something off about him right now. He's not his usual smirking, hoity-toity self at the moment. I wonder if there's something wrong with Zayd. Yeah, just a couple of nights ago, going through more training with me, I finally got the hang of several of the moves he's taught me. I'm gonna be a badass pretty soon. For sure. Sure. So she buys this sad puppy dog, act, hook, line, and sinker. Take this off. Oh, he sits on the bed and she sits up behind him. Take this off, I demand softly, plucking at his hoodie. His head turns, presenting me with his side profile. Very few people have attractive side profiles. That's something that most people don't possess. Bit what? She massages his shoulders, and this, like many others, would have been cute if their relationship had been properly built up, but it's hollow and it means nothing anymore. He's sad because he couldn't save a little girl, and then they get really gross about her death. Sighing softly, I sit on my butt and wrap myself around him like a koala on a tree, legs and arms around his torso and my head resting against his broad back. He doesn't move, a stone pillar amongst the wreckage of his mind, just like the ruins in Greece. Dying isn't the worst thing that happened to her. It's just the worst thing that happened to you and her family. I whisper. I feel the shift of his head, his eyes peering over his shoulder at me, but I don't meet his gaze. The life she would have had would have been far more painful than where she is now. You think it's a good thing she died? He asked, his tone flattening. Of course not, I placate, squeezing him tighter, being stolen from her life, her family and friends, and then being put into an incredibly horrendous and fucked up situation. It's the worst thing that could have happened to her. My voice breaks in the last few words, and it takes a minute to put myself back together. Like, you saying you can't heal from trauma. Like, you can heal from trauma. It's hard and it takes time, but yes, you can heal from trauma. So the book says that and then immediately backtracks in the next paragraph. I think if she had lived, she could have learned to be happy again. I think everyone who suffers from internal demons can find that. We're all capable, but sometimes unseen forces take it out of everybody's hands, and maybe it just means they were meant to find their happiness in the afterlife instead. Can't you just be sad that she died? All of this, oh, it's probably better she didn't make it bullshit, is just say it's not your fault. You did your best. It's sad she didn't make it. And this is what he has to deal with. Like, have a moment of silence for her. Let Adeline give some comfort, be the shoulder to cry on, and then move on. The book is trying to be smart about this, but it's not doing a very good job. And again, it's meant to make him look like a good person, but you can't be a good person if you are breaking into a woman's home and violently assaulting her. It doesn't matter that you go to your job that you get paid for, you have an incentive to do that and be there. It doesn't matter. If you're coming home and committing crimes, you're a criminal. You're a criminal. It doesn't matter that you save little girls and protect kids and protect women. You're still a dickhead. I am dead inside. Time skip. Her mom calls. They're talking about the festival and going on about Gigi's murder. Her and her mom, again, her mom doesn't matter to this story. We see her once. She's on the phone a couple of times, and that's about it. Like, we don't even really get a good reason why they don't get along other than her mom is kind of snooty. But, like, so is fucking Adeline. And, like, the whole don't waste your life, you're a disappointment. It doesn't make any sense. Why would her mom have a problem with what she does if she makes a lot of money doing it? If she has a stable, successful career, it would make more sense if Adeline didn't have a successful, stable career and her mom wanted more out of her. And she was like, no, I don't want your boring, stuffy office job. I want to be a creative. And she is actively working to try and prove her mom wrong. We don't get any of that, though. Skip. Dea and Adeline are going to the festival. And who do they run into? Mark and his wife and a couple of their colleagues, who Adeline describes as Brad looks like he needs to be carrying an oxygen tank around. And Mark is well into his 80s, and I'm sure the other men aren't far off, but Brad in particular seems as if he's defying gravity by standing upright. What does this author have against seniors? Like, is it just me? Like, they could have been in their 40s and been just as gross and twisted, but this book loves to point out that they're older and then kind of like pokes fun at the features of being like aged, like Mark's liver spots and the fact that they're like old, wrinkly skin and crow's feet, and they're kind of fat, and like Brad looks like he needs to be carrying an oxygen tank around. Like, come on. I don't know. Mark and his cohorts or his lackeys or whatever are talking to Adeline and Dea, and Dea's kind of standoffish, as she should be, because Mark is weird. And then the girls, like, she's making small talk about Zayd and just shooting the shit, and then the girls get pulled into the haunted house. Chapter 28. This is just Zayd's perspective, kind of like the beginning of what happened before Mark meets with Adeline in line. And he's keeping tabs on Mark and his group. Sitting at a picnic table with his wife is making googly eyes at a festival employee dressed up like a doll. And when she walks away to one of the houses, Mark follows along after her with Zayd and a few of his henchmen in tow. This chapter, like I said, is just right before Mark meets with Adeline and Dea. He ends up cutting ahead in line to go in after Dea and Adeline. And it's the inside of the haunted house from his perspective. He meets with Sibby, like mentally unstable girl dressed up as a broken doll. And so far, she's the only one to call him out on his bull. She does not like him. Sibby is, if you're not aware, Sibby is like a prequel character. She is kind of like the female version of Zayd. She goes around killing like evil people. And she tries to stab him, but he cold cocks her in the nose, like a gentleman, of course. And he's just going around. At least the whole chapter is just him like going around the house looking for Adeline. Um, but what he finds are 4 old men in a haunted house looking for a couple of young women. He stumbles upon Mark and his henchmen like in a room talking about how they're gonna kidnap Adeline. And one of the men says that no, we should leave Adeline alone because Zach. And then Mark is like, no, he's got scars, he's weak. And you don't call Zayd Meadows weak. I walk into the room, the grin on my face widening when they flinch away. Zach, Mark starts. You know how old these scars are, Mark? Very old. My opponent was a formidable one, but do you want to know who ended up on the floor with their throats slashed and holes in their eyeballs, and holes where their eyeballs used to be? Certainly wasn't me, sir. Tries to brush off my story with a laugh, the sound choked and broken. Zach, please, we weren't speaking of your girlfriend. Mark, the last thing you want to do is lie to me. Just as Mark opens his mouth, a little door in the room springs open and out crawls the biggest fucking nuisance of the night. For the love of God, please leave me alone, I snap. Mark and his friends turn to find the doll straightening a determined gleam in her eye. Her face brightens. God has nothing to do with this, silly. This was actually kind of funny, but I'm so broken down at this point, I think anything would be funny. And I think the reason I kind of liked it was like major like sibling energy. Like Zayd and Sibby have kind of like this back and forth bickeriness that was for the very short time that they interacted, it was kind of funny. And just like him being like, just being like, for the love of God, please leave me alone. It was kind of funny. Chapter 29. Outside, back in the fair, Adeline leaves Dea on a bench to go to the House of Mirrors, and then explain to us what a House of Mirror is. So smart, our Adeline. Of course, she goes in alone, but gasp, Zayd is there too, being all weird, but what's new? Run, he growls, my lungs constrict at the guttural command. If I catch you, I f you. Eyes widening, I listen, my body catapulting into action. I run. I'm completely vulnerable to him. I'm well and truly trapped in a spider's web, and the son of a bitch is poisonous. I'm lost and trapped with a very dangerous man who is going to absolutely devastate me. I don't think I'm running from him anymore, but rather from the person I'm going to be when he's finished with me. Yeah, the one he wants. I was ready to give myself over to him when he emerged from my balcony doors and came to me with a heavy heart. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, Adeline was going to actually willingly Zayd when he was all sad and broody, but he rejected her because he doesn't want her willing. He wants her scared. I was ready to give myself over to him when he emerged from my balcony doors and came to me with a heavy heart. The man put some type of spell on me. But I know I would have woken up the next day and hated myself because I would have slept with a stalker, a murderer, and a man who has forced himself on me on several occasions. I would have slept with a man who doesn't respect my boundaries, my personal space, or the word no. And I know without a shadow of a doubt that's exactly what's about to happen. How do I accept that? How do I toss away the moral compass that's been directing my entire life for a man that I should loathe, but I don't? So she knows. she knows, like, again, like, that awareness is coming up. Like, she knows that he's forcing her and he's not right in the head. But the story keeps dragging her back down and making her forget that he's a literal criminal because the story has to happen. But I'm so frustrated because none of this was necessary. None of it was necessary. Like, I know I keep saying it and you're probably tired of hearing it, but he could have just asked her out. He could have just asked her out and she would have been into it. The same way that she was into Archie coming up behind her and being like, come upstairs with me. Zay could have done that same thing. He could have come up to her in the bookstore and been like, come get a burger with me. And, like, she would have been into it. She wants to be dominated. And, like, all of this was so unnecessary. And the one time that she's willing to have sex with him, willingly, he doesn't want it. Because he only wants her when she's not willing. So he gives us like this super cringy dialogue about how loving you is a house of mirrors, and I'm nearly throwing up. I don't think you know what love is, I whisper. He grunts with amusement. I don't think anybody does, baby. Love is an enigma, and it's redefined every time somebody says it. No, I'm pretty sure it's a stable concept. Like, the problem is that other things often get labeled as love when they're not. Love is trust, communication, compromise, and sacrifice. Or compromise or sacrifice, coupled with commitment and respect. And Zayd has none of those things. He doesn't have trust, he doesn't have communication, he doesn't compromise or sacrifice, and he doesn't respect her. So this is very much not love. Instead, Zayd is obsessive and possessive. Like, he, on a regular basis, disrespects her boundaries and decisions and her autonomy. There's no trust because he keeps breaking it. Like, I think Zayd thinks that he's in love because he's feeling something very strong, but it's not love, it's obsession. And Adeline is addicted to the thrill of him. But I think if given enough time, the glow surrounding Zayd will fade and she'll realize how toxic he is. But by then it'll be too late. Chapter 30. He catches her. They fuck. The end. Wait, hold on. I hope you know I pant. I'm on birth control. He chuckles breathlessly. For now. Dea calls her, absolutely pissed off. She's been worried sick about Adeline. She never came out of the House of Mirrors, never sent Dea a text or anything. And the festival is closed. So Adeline leaves Dea outside in the festival while she goes into the House of Mirrors to get her organs rearranged and didn't tell Dea anything. Chapter 31. So Zayd tells us in summary that he and Sybil teamed up and captured Mark and his crew, and now he's back to deal with the others. Just as I expected, the second I rip the tape from his mouth, he starts pleading for his life, and the minute I tell Mark who I really am, his reddened face instantly drains of all blood until his skin is an ashy gray pallor. Okay, so ashen means of a pale gray color, of the pale gray color of ash, or of resembling ashes. And pallor means an unhealthy, pale appearance. Editors, it doesn't surprise me that he'd pass off the blame to others so easily. He's so selfish and narcissistic and a complete imbecile by the look on the distressed man's faces sitting next to him. They don't think highly of him right now either. Does that sound familiar? So he tortures Mark for info. Mark basically told this shadow government called the society about Adeline. Ooh, scary. Mark tells Zayd that Adeline was marked from the beginning, and I cannot contain my eye roll any longer. It never mattered that whether I came into her life or not. Addie was destined for human trafficking, and the fact that she happens to be the girl I'm absolutely crazy about feels kismet. It feels like fucking destiny that the man who haunts her is the same man who dedicated his life to destroying the people set out to take hers. Destiny? Destiny and not the author's hand around your throat? Chapter 32. Now but laugh. This is kind of funny. So, a couple chapters ago, he was talking about, or in the last chapter, he was talking about how he didn't want to have to pin the murders on Sibby because she seems like such a broken girl. She's crazy though, but he didn't want to have to pin the murders on her. But what does he do? So after they cut up Mark and the others' bodies, and they put it in a little like mobile, aka his Mustang, and the cops roll up, and she refuses to get inside. Something about her henchman, and he just leaves her there, and she ends up taking the fall for all of the murders. And I'm just like, okay, wow. So again, contrivances. This only happened because the story needed Zay to look good, and that's basically it. So he has this like thought to himself about, oh, I don't want to have to pin the murders on her. So the story literally takes it out of his hands and does it for him, again, to make him look good. Everything in this story is to make Zayd look good because he's a shallow, abusive. Alright, we get a short time skip, and Zayd is at Saviors. It's like the super secret child sacrifice society club. It also doubles as, like, I think a strip club. And he's talking with Jay. Anyone I should be concerned about? I hear Jay typing a second in the background. The key is clacking obnoxiously. I have asked the father to get a less noisy keyboard, but he insists the loud clicking brings him peace. And as much as it annoys me, we get so little peace in our daily lives. An obnoxious ass keyboard brings him some sort of semblance of it, then I won't give him shit. Oh my gosh. So I'm a keyboard enthusiast. I do not take kindly to this slander. And also, aren't you a hacker too, Zayd? Like, we never see him actually hacking. He just says he's a hacker. In fact, he lets us know he's the world's best hacker. But I never actually saw him on a computer doing anything. That's what Jay does all the time. Like, what do you mean you don't get it? You should be on a keyboard just as much as he is. Like, time skip. He's in the club. He meets with the contact there and gets an invite for their secret society budget. Chapter 33. Adeline is watching the news, and the murders come up, and she knows right away who did it. And her brain turns back on for the first time in a while, and she finally realizes Zayd is not a good guy. How long will it last? We don't know, because he breaks in as per usual. She asks him to leave. My breath stutters. I don't want to do this anymore, Zayd. I don't want you. And as per usual, he ignores her. So he's like feeling her up, and she asks him to stop again. Stop it, I choke out, attempting to get away, but his hand holds firm, tightening around my throat until black pinpricks dot my vision. You don't want this, baby? You don't want to be full of my discover a new religion every time I make him. Sir, she said, stop. Please, come down off your high horse. Does it scare you? He whispers, his breath tickling my ear. Or does it make your pussy wet knowing that I hold your life in my hands and I allow you to breathe?
Right to jail, right away.
Blood rushes to my head and fear begins to pump through my veins. Just when I think he's not going to stop, his hand loosens and I greedily suck in precious air, but he doesn't let me breathe for much longer. He twists my body around and backs me towards the wall beside the TV, smiling viciously as I stumble away from him, towards exactly where he wants me to be. When I'm a foot away, he grabs me and slams me into the wall, pressing the entire length of his body against mine. Before I can take another breath, his hand is once more encircling my throat.
Right to jail, right away.
And his mouth is on mine. Can't do this. I can't fucking let him do this to me. Ripping my mouth away, I push him back, but he doesn't move an inch. Stop, I snap, struggling against him. I'm not letting you do this. You've just murdered dangerous people, Zayd, which means they have dangerous friends. It's like Max all over again. You're a monster. The hand still wrapped around my throat tightens before he thumps my head against the wall, ceasing my struggles.
Right to jail, right away.
Isn't he just so hot? So she manages to get away and runs out into the night. She is scared. Terror pushes me forward, my legs kicking as I bolt off into the woods, my feet slipping in the slickness on the porch, and it's then that I remember I'm walking barefoot. Too late now, I forge on, gritting my teeth against the bite of rocks in my feet as I bolt across the driveway. She takes a short trip down memory lane for some stupid reason, thinking about, the forest. It doesn't even take a minute before I'm completely turned around The only light offered is from the moon, and even that is weak due to the canopies of the trees clouding the sky. Isn't it raining? How can she see the moon? It's literally like torrential downpour. She trips and falls and like runs again, and he catches her. Of course he does. I struggle against him, fighting like hell to get away, but he's too big, too strong. He easily overpowers me, encircling an arm around my waist, trapping me against his heated body. Hot breath whispers against my ear a moment before his deep voice penetrates the haze of panic and terror circulating my brain. You can't escape me, little mouse. I will always find you. He grabs my face, clenching my cheek tightly between his large hand. That sounded like a threat. Let me go, you maniac. I'll fucking do what? He hisses, cutting me off with an angry growl. He trapped my body between his and the cold ground, the freezing temperatures invading my body. Tell me, Addie, do you think killing pedophiles is wrong? He asked sharply, his one light eye shining bright in the darkness. I think killing people is wrong, I shout in his face, breathing heavily and allowing my body a moment's rest. I'm scared, but my body is exhausted. Why? He volleys back. Because society told you it was? Because humans fabricated morals so that they can control and manipulate people into law and order? Do you think other mammals follow the same morals and rules? That's a weird point for him to make, because you want to know what else society says is wrong? Pedophilia. So it's like you're upholding laws. You're upholding laws, you kid. She struggles some more, and he tells her he didn't do anything wrong. The society already knew about her. She already had a hit out on her before him, and this works to soften her. Of course it does. I was in so much danger I never realized it, never even felt it looming nearby. Yeah, we know. We know. You know what would make a better story? If Zayd's job actually did put a target on her back. Like, that would be good drama, and then they have to work together to survive. But this author is so deep of Zayd's ass, everything that happens is designed to make him look good. It will not let him have any flaws that it can't try to spin in a good way, you know? Like, if his job had actually gotten her in danger, then Adeline would have a little bit of ground to stand on to, like, be mad at him. But we can't let that happen. She can't actually be mad at him. It's just, she's a woman and doesn't know what's right for her. The tables have turned. Where I once accused Zayd of failing to keep me hidden from Mark, I'm now confessing the hard truth. He never stood a chance against fate. Go eat the biggest bag of you can find. Chapter 24. They fuck. I'm not into it. I skipped it. There's a time skip. He's carrying her back to the house. I think he's wearing clothes, but she's completely naked. And playfully she nips him, bites his neck, and he slams her into a tree. Literally slams her into a tree. And they fuck again, and I skipped it. What are you feeling right now? He asked softly. My breathing escalates. Confined, trapped, he volleys back. My mouth tightens because while a part of me wants to say yes, the truth is that I don't. I feel safe, protected, treasured. One day you'll realize that you are not trapped in a prison, he murmurs roughly. But you are. You are trapped in a prison because he won't let you leave. Chapter 35. Uh-oh, another leaked video out of the Saviors Club. The boy gets saved. Whatever. Plus they're in love now, and that's great. That's great for them. I love that for them. Adeline brings up Gigi and Ronaldo and compares the two stalking situations, alluding that they're like reincarnations of the older couple. This is not the first time this idea comes up, but it wasn't very well established. It wasn't like, it was just sort of like dropped in there like spice, and I hate it. For centuries, both of us wearing different faces, inhabiting different bodies, but the same soul is colliding over and over until this planet decides to crumble and our souls have nowhere else to go. So them are stupid and I hate everything. They talk some more about what he does for a living, and Zayd reveals that he just does this because he feels like it. Like he has no strong connection to what he does. He just learned about it one day and decided that that's what he was going to do. And this doesn't really come across, it doesn't even seem like it comes across as something he's just passionate about. It's rather casual. Like he just woke up one day and was like, oh, that's a thing? Let me go fix it. And this might work in real life, but like in a story, everything should matter and have a reason to be there. Characters need strong motivations, and even if it seems cliche that he lost a family member or was trafficked himself, which he says in text, I didn't lose family members, or this didn't happen to me. It would be a more solid reason than just I woke up one day and decided to do it, and just take a moment to mourn the depth that Zayd could have had. If he had actually been a survivor of trafficking himself, that's amazing motivation. Like, if he gets kidnapped as a small child, he can't remember his family. He never sees them again. And then he spends a large portion of his childhood being subject to abuse. And then, like, say he turns like 10 or 11, he manages to escape, but he's not able to save any of the other boys or girls that he's trapped with. He's the only one who gets out, and then he vows to dedicate himself to saving other kids in those situations. That's a rock solid motivation. It explains his trauma, and it manages to like kind of justify his excessive methods. And then, being a survivor himself, he can connect with other survivors. It was right there. Why, she whispers, why did you choose to put your life in danger and hunt down these people and kill them? What made you decide to do this? Her tone isn't laced with judgment, but the need to understand. But I'm not sure my answer will offer her any understanding she's asking for, because I want to, baby. Her brows jump in surprise, not expecting my answer. You're expecting me to give you a legitimate reason for why I took this path in life? Maybe I had a sister or a mother who was kidnapped and sold. Maybe I was myself, but none of those things are the case. When I learned about human trafficking and the depths of its depravity, I was sickened, and I have the skill to do something about it. So I'm saving innocent people because I want to, and I'm torturing and murdering the bad ones because I want to. It was right there. Carlton had the answer in her hand, and one last question. Ask me as many as you want. The roses. Why the roses? I smiled. I've been waiting for her to ask me about those. My mother, her favorite flowers were roses. She always had them all over the house with the thorns clipped so I wouldn't hurt myself. Alright, so take a moment. Take a deep breath. When did Zayd give Adeline roses? Just think about it for a second. What comes to mind with that question? Usually after he assaults her, or scares her, or they fuck, or it's usually involving criminal actions, right? Roses were his mother's favorite flower. Now, remember when I said put a pin in when she comes out to meet him and they're about to go to the gala, and he puts a flower behind her ear in her curls, and then makes her get on the ground and literally hooks her head, holding a belt around her throat. He can see that flower in her hair, and I know he can see it because he literally mentions it later after that scene. There is a flower in her hair, a rose, his mother's favorite flower, as he is almost choking her to death with his fucking cock. Horrifying implications activated. Anyway, Dea pops in to say hi after that lovely revelation. What? Is this him? My smirk widens, and I turn to look at Addie. Have you been gossiping about me, little mouse? Big my is. Addie's eyes pop comically, her hand curls, and it swings right into my chest. It feels just like she threw a little slice of bread at me. No. And if it wasn't for the small figure charging towards me, the loud stomping would be a clear indicator of the storm coming my way. I turn and swoop out of the way of another flying fist, this one packing a lot more punch. That might have felt like a whole loaf of bread. I want to run him over with a bus. I can tell this girl can hit, but fists don't affect me these days. I've grown to accustomed to the bite of a bullet instead. What about one right between the eyes, huh? Can your macho man energy catch that? Dea is staring at Adeline. I thought we hated him. I cock a brow, also staring at Addie and waiting for her answer. They banter back and forth. I hate it. Blah, 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 blah. Goes, I hope you understand that Addie never really stood a chance. Don't blame her. I choked. I literally choked the first time I read this. It plain as day right there. You're right. She didn't stand a chance. Addie crosses her arm, huffing at me and finally finding her voice. All he had to do was piss her off. I make my own decisions, Zaid. Quit acting like I didn't have a choice. You didn't. This is the author. This is the author coming in. Like, Adeline has this weird notion throughout the book that she still has a choice. Like when she says he took her body but never forced her heart. But he did. And in fact, that was his intention, and he said it several times throughout the text. And I'm pretty sure he went extra heavy with the physical assault so that he could lighten up a little bit with the emotional manipulation to let her think that she was free not to love him, but she wasn't. And he made sure to let her know that she couldn't leave or find somebody else. Look at what happened with Archie. Look at what happened in the sunroom. He literally told her, if you find anybody else, I'll kill him. He broke into her house with a gun just to let her know that if she got with another guy, he would fucking kill them both. Or at least the dude. She never had a chance. She never had a choice. From the moment he saw her, she was doomed. There was nothing she could have done. It was all him. And he wasn't going anywhere unless he got bored. Chapter 36. Dea is still mad. And Adeline is explaining what happened at the fair. As I continue telling her everything I know, Dea stares at me with a somber expression on her face. When I finish, she stays quiet. Halfway through the story, I poured us both a shot of vodka. We both needed that liquor courage to hear just how this world can be. I'll be keeping an eye on you as well, Dea says after a few moments. Silence had settled in, and as it stretched on, I grew more and more anxious that she was going to walk out. I hurt her. You don't have to do that, I say, my voice small. It seems I do, she sighs, her frown pulling her lips down. I'm sorry, I apologize again. Ever since he came into my life, shit is insane, and I've barely had time to come to terms with it all. Not to mention that I still don't know how to process him, and I think I wanted to just pretend that I was handling a stalker how I should be, not by going off and well. Him, Dea finishes, her voice stern. But you didn't, you. I cringe, biting my lip against the sting of her words. I deserve that. Yeah, I whisper. Dea's shoulders drop. I'm sorry. You didn't deserve that, she says as if reading my mind. I'm not mad at you for your relationship with Z, Addie. I mean, I don't understand it. I don't understand how anyone could accept their lover as a stalker. I also don't think it's the makings of a healthy relationship. This dude has issues. Put a pin in that. I nod, agreeing with her assessment. What she's saying are the same things that I have thought myself. This is Dea saying this. But knowing that Z is your stalker oddly reassures me. I never knew him personally, obviously. As if that would make a difference. I didn't even know what he looked like, but what he does, it's incredibly admirable. He puts his life on the line every day, walks into the lion's den himself, and saves a lot of innocent souls. He's helped countless people and taken down so many rings already, and I don't have to say what's in the videos to know that Z takes them to heart. That was a quick 180. Almost got whiplash from how she kind of had a little bit of sense there and then immediately came back down. That was a short trip. They continue on this chapter, talking about Gigi's murder, and I mostly skipped it like I did with the rest of it. Chapter 37, it's just Sade at, the ritual thing. Chapter 38, we find out that Frank killed Gigi. Frank, I think, is, Mark's dad or great-granddad or something. We don't care. And then Nana helped cover it up. And there's a time skip. She's sad. She misses Zaid. And this is where we find out how long it's been since the start of the book. All of this happened in 3 months. And while she's thinking about Zaid, she orders an O on express shipping and then goes to bed. Chapter 39. Zaid is at the ritual party. They want a little girl, but he stops it. The police break in, take everybody into custody. They arrest him too. All the ruckus of everybody getting taken down by police, he slips the little girl out the kitchen, and he kind of has a short conversation with her so that she can sort of trust him and he can get her out of there. Her hand lifts, her tiny finger tracing one of the scars on my face. Does this hurt? Not anymore, I say quietly, suppressing the urge to lean away from her touch. I'm not used to anybody touching my scars. When Addie did it, it felt like fire lacing across the dead skin. Now, with Sarah, it feels a tad uncomfortable, but not unbearable. Did the bad guys that took me do this to you? Not the same bad guys, but bad guys all the same. Poetry. This interaction he has with this little girl is a little bit weird, but I think the author is going for like big macho murder man with a soft heart for babies. And I hate it. I hate it because it doesn't make him any less abusive. Like, we see you, Carlton. You can come out from behind the curtain. Chapter 40. Sade is watching Adeline sleep, like he always does. He gets into bed and gives us probably one of the best quotes I've ever seen. I could have tried to fall asleep, but I decided to hold off on that until Addie admits her love for me freely and freely accepts mine. Okay, so he's gonna hold off fucking her while she's fully asleep until after she says she loves him. So that when he inevitably forces her to admit it, she just is fair game at any time, in any condition, because he doesn't care. Beautiful. She wakes up and I barf, and there's a time skip. He's got to go to work. He tells her he's got to go, and I hope he dies. And then there's chapter 41. He's at the club, the Savior's Club, whatever it is, with Dan, the guy who sent him to the ritual where he got all the rest of them arrested. The basement is like part sex dungeon, part ritual altar. They almost sacrifice a little girl, and then the cops bust in, and everything goes crazy. Zayd is doing this thing, and then there's an explosion. He gets thrown across the room. He doesn't die. Too bad. Turns out it was a setup. Jade swoops in to rescue Zayd, but then somebody comes in, has them both at gunpoint, and Jay is looking behind Zayd. He can't see who it is, and utters a single word, "You," and then chapter 42. So Dea sends a text to Adeline asking her to come over. She really needs a friend. Adeline is kind of weirded out. She tries to call, but it goes straight to voicemail. Super not suspicious at all. She tries to call again and again and again, and still no answer. So she drives down to Dea's place, and it doesn't cross her mind that something might be seriously wrong here. And then she notices a car following her. Gasp. They run her off the road and drag her out of the car. 365 days, is that you? Plot twist, they're Max's henchmen. They knock her out, kidnap her, everything goes black. And that's the end of the book. And it's finally over. I hated this so much. Where do I even begin? Let's start with the prose. It was bad. Sentences were choppy, clunky messes. There were periods where there really should have been commas or semicolons, and words were misused. Phrases were repeated, or sometimes just didn't make sense. You cannot convince me that this was edited at any level because it was just so bad. Into this book, knowing that the prose was going to be a rough read, but I've read books before where the prose was hard to get through and the story was still like decent enough to keep me engaged. And you know what, I thought maybe H.D. Carlton was just a young author and she needed, because writing is a lot like drawing. It's a skill and it takes time to craft it, but you can get better at it. If you put in the time and the energy, you can get better at writing. And I thought maybe she just written a bad book. This was maybe one of her first couple, and it just was like she needed time to learn. But this story is, like, down to its very foundation, is very problematic. Not just with the prose, but what the story is actually saying. Constantly excuses Zayd from any wrongdoing while trying to point the spotlight at other characters who do bad things. It is excusing or trying to excuse stalking, rape, torture, murder. The book never calls Zayd out on anything, and in fact, it goes out of its way not to call him out while simultaneously calling out everybody else. It's because Zayd is actually the main character. He's the protagonist. I thought maybe at first that Adeline was just a bad main character because the plot was always happening to her and not because of her. She had no forward momentum in anything. But then I realized that it's actually Zayd. Zayd is the only one who really moves the plot in any kind of meaningful way. And because of that, Zayd never gets called out. it like wraps him up in this little bubble, and every time a character gets close to calling him out, the story immediately stops it. Like, so many times there were dots that were close to hitting and they just sailed right on by. And this book is severely overwritten at over 500 pages. And it spoon feeds the reader literally everything, but somehow still manages to underdevelop the most important relationship, the romance. In fact, there is no romance here. This is not a love story, it's a mismarketed thriller. It had over 500 pages to do something. Absolutely nothing. So deeply mad at what this book is, and then frustrated at what it could have been. I can see the bones, I can see the premise of this. It's so interesting, it's very interesting, and it could have been something so much better. But Carlton didn't just fumble the ball, she yeeted it off a cliff. She was in love with Zaid, and she wanted the rest of the world to be in love with Zaid too, despite his bad actions. The story has this weird undercurrent with like a lot of topics, like with senior citizens and with like being okay with like children, traumatized children not making it, and like it says, it tries to say one thing and ends up saying another. Zaid is not a good character. Zaid is not a good love interest. Zaid is a criminal, and the story constantly excuses him. And Adeline is not a sassy, independent protagonist. She's a victim. She's a stalled out character. She's basically a side character in her own story. And Zaid is the driver in this getaway car, and Adeline is stuffed in the trunk, and so are we. And we're just witnessing everything happen, and it's so very frustrating. None of this was sexy. It always constantly like flip flops back and forth on what it's trying to say, and the only solid stance the story takes is that it loves Zaid for some reason, and it wants us to love Zaid too, and I just can't, and I refuse to. But I think I'm done. This is over 3 hours of voiceover. Um, Listen, I'm gonna head out. If you want me to rewrite the scene where he's chasing her through the house to see what you could have had, let me know in the comments. I'll do pretty much any scene of this book, but just one because it left me dead inside, so choose wisely. I need to go take a nap. Bye.